This is about to be a half a day for the real reason benefits people have a purpose in an organization. Dan, as a benefits content expert, what makes benefits useful, crucial? Why do this at all?
So, Karl, I think there's two main reasons for it. If you think about the life cycle of an employee, the first thing that happens is they have to become an employee. So you have to attract them. So when a company is interviewing an employee and the employee is deciding whether to join, they are giving up a lot of their time, a lot of their family, a lot of their talents, and they want something back. And what do they want back? They obviously want to be compensated for it, but they also need a feeling of security. And that's what benefits provides, is that feeling of security. So it's what happens if there's an illness, what happens if there's an accident, what happens when they run out of time to work in retirement.
So what I hear you say is the benefits allow the employee to really focus on the job, the task, the stay focused, will cover things that go wrong.
Correct.
Okay, so, and then what else was there?
So the second thing from the life cycle perspective is now that they're here, now they're in your organization. Yes, they're doing their job, but do they belong? And benefits is something that allows them to belong. For example, a wellness program is probably the biggest piece of engagement that you can leverage, the biggest tool for engagement that a company can leverage with their employees. It gives them something to be part of that's greater than them, as opposed to just the things that they can produce on spreadsheets or code or PowerPoints or anything else.
Okay. Let's talk about, thank you. That was our brief introductory remarks on why we're here. I'd also like to note that you benefits professionals have one of the highest probability of making, of all the positions in your organization, you're on the hot seat for an unusual reason. There aren't many other positions that with one error, you can make everyone in the company angry and all of their partners and families angry. I mean,
and even more importantly, the CEO's admin.
Yeah, the CEO's admin. We were laughing that if you change your benefits, your prescription card on January 2nd, the first person to try and use the failed card is going to be who?
The CEO's admin.
The CEO's admin. This is, we respect the amount of pressure that's on you because we've both been that. First things first, I want to cover like three big things. First things first, what's the first thing a benefits professional coming here today should be knowing about 2025 about their company?
Well, we've all heard the term HR needs a seat at the table, and that's very important from the perspective of strategy. So we need to know what's the company's strategy, and then the next step behind that is what's the human capital strategy. Mm-hmm. So
they have to align kind of like a set of Russian nesting dolls.
Exactly.
Big strategy, human capital strategy, benefits strategy.
Yes. And as an example, ADT is for the past few years has been undergoing a transformation. We've been a service company. ADT is 150 years old. We've been a service company for most of that time. We've become a technology company, so that the strategy of the company has literally changed. And as a result, the human capital strategy has changed. The type of people that we need to attract and retain are different than the types of people we had to attract and retain before.
Thank you. Give me an example of a specific task that suddenly you're having to hire for, and what kind of a benefit we can maybe strategize, what kind of a benefit might help attract that person.
Sure. So an example is we used to rely on a technology backbone that was outsourced to another company. alarm.com. It's a platform for our systems. We now develop that system in-house because we need to be able to do certain things with it that are beyond the capabilities of our former partner. So how do we develop that system? By attracting literally Silicon Valley talent to an 150-year-old service organization.
And where are you trying to pull? Can they work remotely, or are you having a new strategy of people working in offices?
It depends.
Okay.
Depends on the role. So we are trying to have some people in office for collaboration. We do recognize that there's some flexibility is required to attract the right talent in other circumstances.
Okay.
But to go back to your question of give an example of a specific benefit, we didn't have paid parental leave. And we know to attract workers from Silicon Valley to not have that type of a benefit was a huge issue. I mean, we literally heard that firsthand from our candidates. We heard we know it firsthand from our former employers in many cases. So that was a benefit we introduced when we realized what our human capital strategy required.
You just said something interesting. You were asking your candidates for what benefits they were expecting. Do you have any thoughts on surveying both existing employees and the employees coming in?
Yeah. So that's
how's that for a segue?
That's a great segue. So the second great point, Karl, is of what a company needs to do is develop an employee listening strategy, and that listening strategy needs to be formal. So we brought in a vendor to help us with that, and we started with employee surveys, soon after hire, 60, 90, 180 days, and then we continued that strategy with employee engagement surveys for all employees. And then we finished those surveys with exit surveys, and we have those all in one platform. So that's the employee listening strategy. But we go beyond even that. We start the listening process with our talent acquisition team by listening to what our candidates are saying. And so that's where we heard the paid parental leave, even more so than with our existing employee base.
So is this a survey, another Survey Monkey that I get in my email, or is this actually face-to-face?
So it's not Survey Monkey. We use a company called Perceptix. It's a platform. There's several other vendors that you can use to do that. But it's much more robust than Survey Monkey. There's a lot of tools on the back end that we as an HR team can leverage to understand what the survey responses are, and leverage those tools with our managers to be able to address concerns that are non-benefits related, that are maybe specific to the teams.
Let me also make the point that we were talking I talked with some of the people who are here to offer services. I'm noticing that they're trying to make benefits. I was talking specifically, for instance, to Firefly, where they're trying to make benefits more, I was going to try and be positive about it, make benefits less of a hassle. And then listening to you, hearing from applicants about the importance possibly of work-life balance, possibly about we've got the changing demographics of the workforce wanting more of a focus on let's call it family issues. And so, I'm thinking like Maven out here does all this work on all of the issues focused on the human side, the reproductive rights, the all of the things involving in creating a family, whatever it's defined as these days. There's these vendors popping up that have these new services that are trying to meet this future of benefits.
So part of our listing strategy, I mentioned this kind of standard surveys, what happens 60, 90, 180 days, employee engagement surveys. we've leveraged that platform to also have customized surveys about specifically comp and benefits. And one of the results of that customized survey, and we didn't send it to all employees. We try to focus so we're not just surveying employees constantly. We don't want that survey monkey effect, so to speak.
Nothing against SurveyMonkey.
Yeah.
I've just had too many of them.
We asked them what types of benefits do you want, and one of the things we literally heard was many of our employees are technicians. They're working in customer homes, and they were looking for a disease management program in musculoskeletal area. So
a disease management program?
Yes, I mean they didn't call it that, but they wanted something to help them with musculoskeletal issues. They actually said that in the survey responses.
Wow.
So by asking your employees, you will discover what they want.
You had talked to me earlier about modeling. Now, don't take this wrong, you're a data nerd.
Yes.
What does modeling mean? Why would it be important?
So one of the other things that we've leveraged our survey work for is developing a turnover model. So literally predicting when employees are at higher risk of leaving the organization and what the reasons for that might be. Now we're trying to be, I did this in the former organization, and I made sure that we were not Big Brother-ish, so we're not monitoring their web use and seeing what sites they're visiting. We're trying to focus on just job-related factors and their own feedback to us. And we were able to develop that model, and we can see some of the factors that lead to departures. Sometimes it's things that are outside of benefits, like manager relationships, but sometimes it is benefits. And one example was we actually we're willing to try stuff. We're a 150-year-old company that's willing to try stuff and fail fast. So one of the things
Interesting. You're willing to try and fail.
Yes. So one of the other things we needed to accomplish as an organization was raise the level of our performance. We changed our performance management systems. We changed our calibrations. We changed our programs, how we pay for performance. And one of the things we decided to change was our 401k plan. We made our 401k plan performance-based.
What?
Yeah.
Wow.
So the funding of the 401k plan depended on performance. We very quickly heard loud and clear from our employees that they don't want their retirements linked to performance.
Accountability apparently is a bad thing.
The following year we changed it back. So we were willing to fail fast. But I mean, this was the initial change was a conversation, as you can imagine, with the C-suite, the CFO, the CEO. So a lot of stakeholders. They were willing to, number one, try things. Number two, admit their mistake.
It sounds like an idea the CFO loved.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah. Well, and it's interesting. He raises a good point. Benefits are a huge part of the cash flow statement. I mean, we're right up there with salaries.
Yeah.
I mean, it's one of the bigger things. And putting on the hat of a CFO, they don't necessarily see return for their investment on benefits. We have a challenge. If we do a good wellness plan, and because of the work we do, in 2025, there aren't 4 $2 million shock claims because of work we did in wellness, because of predictive analytics. There's no red light that comes on that says that we saved $8 million. It's difficult to measure things that don't happen because you got benefits right. And so we need to figure out better communication skills with the CFO who is suspicious of us. Are there any CFOs in the room? Excellent.
But one area you can quantify the cost of is turnover. Well, at least in our company, it's fairly easy because we do have a large workforce with a turnover issue, both in the service area of our company and the sales area of our company, and so that turnover can have a value. And so when you take it to the step I described, which is developing a turnover model, and then saying, okay, these are the things contributing to turnover, and then say benefits are one of those factors. While you can't say, yeah, spending another 50 cents on a 401k plan per hour for every employee is going to decrease turnover by X%, you can at least say benefits are something that's contributing to lower turnover or higher turnover.
Can I add a quick thought here? If we have a distribution curve of employees based on performance, which group is the most important to the success of ADT? I would say it's the high performers.
It's always the high performers.
Therefore, pay close attention to what they want. It's interesting. If you have benefits that attract and retain low performers, this is not good. So in your data gathering, have the ability to slice out the high performers as a separate data set and look at what they want and spend more money there. Because if statistics are true, and I think they are, if you've got 20 people, there's 3 that are high performers statistically. Those 3 can produce more than half the output of a department. Does that make sense? So really pay attention to them at a time where if somebody's a high performer, those of us that manage people, if somebody's a high performer, we leave them alone. We don't talk to them much because they're fine. Well, actually, they're ignored, and that's dangerous. And we need to make sure that we're paying attention to what they want.
And we make a point, I'll go back to the listening strategy. We make a point of telling our employees that their responses are not anonymous. They're confidential, but they're not anonymous. Because we do want to pay attention to what our employees are saying specifically and be able to focus our efforts where we need them.
Okay. We're at 2 minutes here. Let's do a speed round. Of everything we've talked about, what should they do first? Is that the 2-minute warning?
I'll go back to my first point. I think the number one thing to do is to understand what is the company's strategy and what is the implication for the human capital strategy, and as a result, what needs to be your benefit strategy. What is going to drive the change? If the company's strategy is to cut cost at all, first, foremost, and third most, and that, and it doesn't matter, turnover doesn't matter, then your marching orders. Your demographics aren't changing, you're cutting costs, so benefit cost is going to be first and foremost, and that's your strategy. But if the focus is, like in our situation, focuses on attracting a whole different set of employees to develop a new organization, then that's a different challenge for benefits.
Okay. And my turn. I think the big thing is that 2025 is going to be chaotic. Is that fair? We can really use this chaos to move the pieces on the chessboard. If you've got benefits that have been grandfathered in since how old is ADT?
150 years.
150 years. In a period of chaos, if you're offering a supportive benefit that's keeping people there, great, keep funding it. But if there's benefits that they take for granted that aren't motivating, that cost a lot of money, maybe now's the time in the chaos to take that piece off the chessboard. I'm Karl Ahlrichs. This is Dan Pikelny. And now is when you applaud.